Hi, friends. Welcome to the Why on Earth Community Stewardship and Sustainability Discussion Series. And I'm very excited today that we have the opportunity to talk with Reverend Fletcher Harper from GreenFaith. And Reverend Fletcher, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this opportunity. And of course, you and I, we have crossed paths a few times in the last year or two, doing work in the realm of stewardship, sustainability, social justice, particularly in some of these interfaith nexus points and meetings, conferences that have been occurring. And it's so heartening to see folks from a variety of spiritual and religious backgrounds getting together to help heal our world and relationships. And I'm hoping you could kick us off here today by telling us, why do you think a religious or spiritual approach to environmental concerns is an important part of the dialogue and what's going on these days?
Well, I think that, it's in our society in the U.S., and this is true in a lot of places globally, it doesn't take long before concerns around the environment and climate change become politicized and become viewed primarily through a political lens. And when that happens, given that a lot of societies are relatively evenly split politically, you start to lose the ability to address the fact that all people, in our experience, share a certain level of moral and spiritual concern about having a safe and healthy planet to live on. They may view the avenue to getting to that end differently, but there's a shared concern there. And so I think one of the things that religion can do is to speak to that deeper level on which we all come together around the fact that the earth is a gift. It's our responsibility to take care of that gift. That things are in certain ways out of balance, and that it's really vitally important that we wake up to the challenge and find ways to meet it in a way that creates a healthy environment for everybody, that fosters a prosperous future for the human family and for the earth on which humanity depends. So I think that there's a real critical importance in a polarized era for religion and spirituality and voices representing those stepping forward and making the case that we're all in this together.
Absolutely. It has struck me as so profound and heartening, again, very heartening, that these last few years in particular, it seems that many of us from all sorts of different faith backgrounds are transcending the divisions and the barriers in many respects, and coming together more so as a human family around some of these very large scale, very challenging situations that we face now on the planet. And although certainly we live in times that are fraught with sadness and incredible destruction, at the same time, there seems to be some light coming through in how it is really bringing people together in ways that we maybe weren't just a few years ago.
Well, I think there are, what we see in our work is that there are signs of hope. Religious and spiritual communities are without question a lot more awakened around these issues than they ever have been. And there's more and more work that's getting done, which is good. I think at the same time, we look at the really considerable challenges that we face, and there's a long, long way to go. And there's a sort of acceleration that's needed. And so it's, we live there are signs of hope, and there are challenging signs also. And I think what motivates and drives us is the sense that there's a great deal more that's possible, and that we need to move in that direction.
Yes, absolutely. So would you give us a quick overview of the work you're doing at GreenFaith? And I know that you all are really one of the leaders out at the fore for many faith communities, at least all around the United States. And I get the sense even internationally. And if you wouldn't mind just kind of walking through what you guys are working on, it would, I think, be great for us to hear more about that.
Sure. We do work in three areas, basically. We do quite a bit of work in the training and capacity building area, which means we train religious leaders and people of different faiths around how to approach environmental concerns in their own context. We do quite a bit of campaigning work. We've been very involved, as an example, in the fossil fuel divestment movement, mobilizing faith-based groups to take part in that. We're quite active in terms of mobilizing faith voices and faith presence around important negotiation moments in terms of the global climate negotiations. And we are, so we do quite a bit of that organizing and mobilizing work. We've been involved in mobilizing religious and spiritual communities for the various people's climate marches that have happened. And then most recently, the newest facet of our work is a local organizing model where we're supporting local faith communities getting involved in organizing themselves, getting 5 or 10 congregations together in a given area and doing organizing work, addressing substantive issues and participating in national and global campaigns from that local perspective. So, that the sort of training capacity work, the campaigning and mobilizing work, and the local organizing work all are a part of what we do and make up the mission that we've got.
That's so beautiful. And how can folks, if they're in a community wanting to get their own congregation potentially more connected with GreenFaith, what's the best way to go about making that connection?
I would say that folks can visit our website, which is GreenFaith, green like the color green, faith like faith in God.org. We also we do a lot of sort of consultation with groups, so people can send us an email at info at greenfaith.org, and we can get back to them with some ideas about how to get started. There's a getting started kit that's available for faith and spiritual communities that's on our website. And then we offer periodic webinars and campaign involvement opportunities through which folks can become involved. So it's there are a number of ways for people to connect up, and we always enjoy connecting with folks.
Beautiful. Thank you. I have been struck. Many of my friends and family identify as religious and are very comfortable with concepts like prayer, and that's a part of life for those folks. I also have friends in the secular environmental community for whom concepts like prayer are perhaps uncomfortable. And meanwhile, understanding we live in a time when the climate is changing at the hands of human activity, and have also friends and family in the arena I would call maybe in the social political science kind of realm of approaching life and understanding what's going on for us humans. And again, with that group, often something like prayer might be uncomfortable, and even considering the plight of our brothers and sisters on the planet who truly are suffering from extreme poverty, and also the most at risk and susceptible to these environmental catastrophes and upheavals that we are now seeing more and more. And I just wonder, in your work, knowing that you really are a bridge builder and you're really reaching across different boundaries, what might you share with folks, maybe identifying with one or a couple of those camps that I just kind of outlined? What do you see as an opportunity to continue bringing us further and further together to the extent that might be possible?
Well, I think that it's really important. I mean, one of the things that we've seen over the last several years has been, and this is relatively new, that more and more relief and development agencies, including religious relief and development agencies, which traditionally have dealt with different kinds of natural disasters or grassroots or community development work in developing countries, are all starting to talk now about climate change. As an example, they're realizing the world is changing. Climate change is creating more disasters, which, I mean, we used to call them natural disasters, but there's a clear sort of human fingerprint to some degree on these things now. And people that work in terms of helping small farmers develop and stay viable are recognizing the weather-related and the climate-related challenges. So I think that's one thing that does bring people together, as a recognition that there is, just plain and simple, that people who are innocent of any meaningful wrongdoing on this front are suffering the impacts of a changing world, and that's not right, and that evokes a sense of compassion from people. So I think that's one piece of the picture. I think another piece of the picture that is really hopeful with this is that there's very substantial opportunity for when it comes to the development of new forms of renewable energy, new green infrastructure. One of the great, I think, social challenges that we have in the United States is this growing gap between the very wealthy and the rest of society. And part of what a really strong green infrastructure program does is it creates significant numbers of skilled trade jobs that can't be outsourced, and that are part of having a strong society and a cohesive society. So I think there are, you look at both the humanitarian side of things, but then also a sense of the pride in building a strong and resilient society. I think both of those are themes that can help bring people together from a lot of different camps.
Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely. So as a preacher, I'm curious if you have a favorite passage or two from the scriptures that helps orient some of the work you're doing as it relates to stewardship of our world, this planet, as well as care for one another. Is there anything that jumps out to you there?
There are two that I like. One from the Hebrew scriptures, from the book of Genesis, when God is over and over again calling everything that God creates good during the first creation story, and then gets to the end of the week and looks at everything and calls it very good. I love that, and I think there's a very fundamental assertion there that is about a gift that is given not just to us but to all of the created order. And then literally right at the other end of the Bible, there's a wonderful passage in the book of Revelation, which is a challenging book for many of us, where the New Jerusalem, heaven, paradise is being described. And it's a fascinating image because it's an image of a city, the New Jerusalem, but it's a city that has a river flowing right down its main street. And on either side of the street, there are these beautiful, life-giving trees. And there's a passage in the book of Revelation that says the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. And that's always been I find that very moving, because I think that it says that ultimately we all depend on nature's healing and restorative and supportive power for our very lives. And I think that that's true. And I think that passage puts it really beautifully in a very poetic way.
That is absolutely beautiful. Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. Just want to take a moment. Mentioning trees made me think of this, to give a quick shout out for those of our friends who are tuning in through the podcast. If you would like, you can use the code podcast, the word podcast, at whyonearth.org/market to get some special deals on audiobooks and some of the other listening products that we have there. And also want to encourage folks to check out whyonearth.org/community, where we're posting more and more of these sorts of sharings with different thought leaders and community leaders from all over, doing all kinds of amazing work. And Reverend Fletcher, I want to mention one of the big things that we're really excited about now is activating in communities all over, working with some very special biodynamic soil preps to help activate the soil ecology. And I'm struck in Genesis, this connection with soil that also occurs at the time of creation. And it seems among a lot of the things we can do, and I love the starter kit and eco tips you all offer. Notice the categories: energy, toxins, food, transportation, waste reduction, water. And noted within the food segment that y'all identify that 40% of the energy consumption in the production of food, 40% actually is the manufacture and use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. And it turns out one of the things a lot of those synthetic and man-made chemicals are doing is literally killing off the incredible, miraculous soil biota that the more I learn about it, the more I marvel at the incredible complexity that exists in that soil ecology. And it seems to me, with this image of the leaves of the trees for the healing of the nations, one of the ways we might engage with that in our own homes, in our own neighborhoods, in our own communities is through soil, and helping to heal and enliven soil with trees as well and other plants. And just curious if perhaps as time goes on, some of your community outreach and mobilizing work might also include some of these soil things. And it's not to put you on the spot necessarily, but it, from my perspective, seems like it could be an incredibly powerful piece and layer to the work that you guys are already doing in so many communities.
I think that one of the things that's nice about that opportunity is that so many religious institutions own some property and can use the soil work that you're talking about, which is really important, as part of the way that they treat the soil, in their own place. We're big believers in the importance of religious groups finding ways to model what it means to be an environmental leader in their community. And so I think it would be, I know that in the UK a decade or so ago, there was a wonderful initiative that was called, I think, the Living Churchyard, that was about recognizing that there were a lot of old cemeteries, and that if they were left somewhat uncut, they could become a place that could support some biodiversity of plants that would grow naturally there, but that were becoming increasingly rare across the UK countryside. And so I think this idea of using religious properties as a way of modeling really exemplary behaviors, and then using those properties also, to teach and to train their members and members of the community about how to take those practices home is a great opportunity.
Absolutely. As you're describing that project in the UK, something came to mind to me where our churches, our houses of worship have for such a very long time been a place of sanctuary for our hearts, our minds, our spirits. And my gosh, I was getting this image of these places becoming increasingly sanctuaries for so many other of God's creation, the birds and pollinators and soil microbes and all kinds of others. And my gosh, what a beautiful day it will be when many of our places of worship are also ecological sanctuaries in a very literal sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think that, and there are more and more congregations that are on that pathway, and I think that there's lots of room for growth and development in that area, and I'm sure that with the proper kind of effort, there would be congregations that would want to become leaders in that soil area.
Yes, beautiful. Well, Reverend Fletcher, I know we've got just a couple minutes left, and I want to make sure to ask a two-part question. What are some of the concrete ways in which GreenFaith has and is making a difference that you want to highlight that you haven't already? And second, what are your top priorities now and going forward that you want to make sure that we highlight for folks? I know you've already hit on some of this.
So I would say in terms of making a difference, we really believe that it's very important and that it makes a real difference when people of diverse spiritualities and faiths and their spiritual leaders step out publicly to raise their voices in the public sphere about the urgent importance of caring for the earth. And so this September, there's a mobilization coming up around the Global Climate Summit that's happening in San Francisco. The mobilization will be on the 8th of September, and as I said previously, we've taken part in past climate marches, and we're inviting people to take part in that mobilization because we think it's a really important time to continue to show leaders that people of faith care deeply about this stuff. And I think in terms of a call to action, very much in keeping with that, we believe as people of faith that we need to lead by example. And part of what that means is advocating for good policies. And part of what it means is making sure that our own lifestyles are reflecting a level of responsibility and good stewardship in terms of the climate. And so we've got we're working with a number of partners on a multi-faith international campaign called Living the Change, which is about equipping people and inviting people to adopt more sustainable lifestyles with a particular focus on three areas that really make a big difference. Home energy use, diet, moving towards a plant-based diet, and transport, less air travel, less car travel. And there's a website for that at livingthechange.net. And the call to action is that we're inviting folks to make commitments, and you'll be able to do that, make a commitment on that website within the next month or so, and we'll be gathering those commitments and taking them to that Global Climate Summit this September in San Francisco. So I'd love to invite people to join us at livingthechange.net to find out more.
Beautiful. We'll be sure to share that with folks. And my goodness, Reverend Fletcher, this has been such a joy, and thank you so much for joining us today, taking some time out of your busy schedule. And before we sign off, I just want to mention one more time, greenfaith.org is where folks can find out more about the work you and your colleagues are doing at GreenFaith. Of course, whyonearth.org is a great place for folks to connect in further with the Why on Earth community. And Reverend Fletcher, what a joy to speak with you again. Thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thanks for the invitation very much, Aaron, and thanks for your leadership, and I appreciate the chance to be with you.
Wonderful. Well, take care.
You too. Bye-bye now.